Long ago, when humanity was young and still fighting for survival on a dangerous Earth, the stars seemed far away, unreachable, nothing but small lights in the sky. But the truth was different. Because one night the stars reached back, an ancient alien race, powerful and old, saw humanity standing on the edge of extinction. The planet broken by wars, plagues, and hunger, and while other races turned away, this one extended its hand. They gave medicine when disease was winning. They gave food when hunger was killing, and they gave knowledge when humanity had only fire and stone. The humans survived because of them. And in that moment humanity made a vow, a promise whispered not in power but in desperation, that if the day ever came, if humanity ever rose high enough to look across the stars, they would repay the debt, repay it fully, repay it with everything they had. But the galaxy forgot that promise. Centuries passed. Civilizations grew, and humanity spread slowly outward, small colonies here, trade stations there, nothing special in the eyes of mighty empires. Humanity was seen as weak, as latecomers, as a species with no true legacy, and the old alien race that had saved them fell into silence. Its name remembered only in fragments, its own people scattered and reduced to shadows of what they had been. The Council of the Galaxy did not fear humanity, they mocked it, laughing at the strange little species that still spoke of honor, still spoke of promises, still spoke of debts, in a galaxy where betrayal and power games ruled. Who kept promises, who remembered debts? Only fools. Yet as the centuries stretched further, a change began, small at first, like a ripple in a quiet pond. Whispers that humanity was growing faster than anyone realized. Whispers of warships being built in hidden docks. Whispers of colonies expanding into resource worlds no one dared to touch. Whispers of fleets vanishing when they tried to raid human convoys. Rumors carried from border to border that the humans were not so weak after all. In the great council hall, alien voices rose in uneasy debate. Massive reptilian warlords scoffed, claiming the humans were nothing but insects. Insectoid hive queens hissed warnings that humans multiplied too fast. Long-lived crystalline beings hummed coldly that humans were unpredictable, dangerous, and clever, and in the shadows of the chamber, the old race that had once saved humanity watched silently, their eyes glowing with something. Between fear and pride, they remembered the vow, the words spoken by desperate voices so long ago. They remembered the oath of repayment, the oath no other species would have kept, and they alone knew that humanity never forgot. Soon the signs grew stronger, a transmission intercepted, encrypted in strange codes, carrying only a phrase repeated again and again. The debt is due. Whole sectors panicked at the words, no one knew what they meant, but the sound of them carried a weight that shook. Leaders, military forces scrambled, alliances formed, the council gathered in panic sessions, their voices echoing through the grand chamber. One alien shouted that humanity was planning war. Another argued they might be offering a gift, a repayment of kindness, but none could agree, because humanity had grown in silence, and no one truly knew how much power they now held. Ambassadors were sent to human space, but most never returned. Some came back pale and silent, whispering only that humanity was preparing something vast, something beyond imagination, and that the words the debt were carved into every wall, every hall, every warship they had seen. Still the galaxy debated, some saying humans would come with healing, others saying they would come with fire, and while they argued, fleets of human warships slipped quietly into the void, massive and endless, their hulls black as night, their engines glowing like suns, silent, patient, unstoppable, and the galaxy trembled. Because the day had come when humanity was finally ready to repay the forgotten debt, and no one, not even the oldest races, knew if that repayment would be salvation or terror. The Galactic Council chamber was a place built to impress, a hall larger than any city square, with pillars of crystal rising into the clouds and seats shaped for every species that ruled the stars. And yet on this day the room was not filled with pride but with fear. The whispers had spread too far. The intercepted human transmissions, the fleets spotted at the edge of known space, the mysterious phrase carved into data streams, the debt is due. And now every voice in the chamber was raised in panic. The reptilian warlord of the Drac hissed loudly, his scales rattling as he slammed his clawed fist on the stone table. They prepare for war. Can you not see it? Humanity builds fleets larger than empires, and they speak of debts. Debts to whom? Debts paid with what? With blood? His roar echoed. But before silence could settle, the crystalline being known as Surith pulsed with deep blue light. its voice calm but heavy. You overreact. Warlords always overreact. Perhaps humanity speaks of gifts. Perhaps they seek only to honor old oaths, a debt repaid in kindness, not terror. Its words vibrated like music, yet no one believed it fully, because even in its calm tone was the note of unease. Then came the hive matron, her insectoid limbs clacking as she rose, her wings humming with agitation. Humans never move without purpose. Their kind multiplies, adapts, consumes, and now they gather silently. Their silence is more dangerous than any weapon. I say strike first, burn their fleets before they burn us. A wave of clicking echoed from her drones in agreement, but others hissed in protest. One elder from the aquatic gel species raised his tendrils, his voice bubbling like water. Fools, if you strike them without cause you invite destruction. I have heard whispers from traders. Whispers that human weapons are not like ours. They build machines that can erase fleets in silence. They build soldiers that fight without fear. Strike them and you will not survive to see their repayment. The chamber boiled with arguments, voices rising, threats flying, some calling for alliances, others for immediate war. The council had never been this divided. Fear had cracked them, and in the shadows of the chamber sat the oldest ones. The race that had once saved humanity. Their faces, hidden beneath cloaks, their eyes glowing faintly. They did not speak. They did not need to, because they remembered the oath. The words spoken by desperate humans centuries ago. An oath that promised repayment not in coins or words but in something much greater. And they knew humanity had never forgotten. The council demanded answers. Reports from the borders came in. Scouts whispering that whole sectors had gone silent after human fleets passed. That outposts once loyal to empires now flew banners marked with the human symbol, the old Earth crest carved into steel. Fear gripped the room, because no one knew if those worlds had joined willingly or fallen in silence. The council leader, an ancient being of light, struck its staff against the floor to quiet the chaos, its glow flickering with unease. We must decide, it said. Humanity rises in shadows, their words bring fear, their fleets bring silence. Do we welcome them as friends, or prepare for them as enemies? Silence followed, but not peace, because no one could answer, no one dared. Humanity had moved beyond their sight, and the galaxy realized with terror that when the debt was repaid, it would not be small, it would shake the stars themselves. The galaxy had argued, feared, and whispered, but nothing prepared them for the first sight of the human fleet. It began at the edge of charted space, outposts blinking distress signals as enormous shapes emerged from the void. Not one or two, not dozens, but thousands, vast warships with black hulls that seemed to drink the light of nearby stars. Their engines burning like suns, silent, patient, unstoppable. The first scouts who saw them sent desperate transmissions, describing ships larger than anything ever built, carriers that could hold cities, dreadnoughts that blocked the stars themselves, smaller escort ships swarming like wolves around giants, every formation perfect, every maneuver like a blade being drawn. Then the signals went silent, no explosions, no wreckage, just silence. Whole sectors stopped reporting, and fear spread faster than light. In the council chamber, the panic turned to dread as recordings arrived, grainy images of the fleet slipping from hyperspace in unbroken lines, human banners glowing faintly on their hulls, the crest of Earth carved into steel. The council demanded answers. Some shouted that it was an invasion. Others claimed it was only a show of power. But none could deny what they saw. The humans had come. Alien stations near the border tried hailing them, their voices trembling, asking for intent, for peace, for anything, but the human fleet moved without reply, their silence more terrifying than weapons. They neither attacked nor retreated, they simply advanced. Systems once ruled by ancient empires lit up with their presence. Fleets of aliens scrambled to defend, but the humans did not fire. They passed by, surrounding planets, mapping skies, their presence enough to force whole governments to surrender without a shot. Whispers spread that some worlds opened their gates willingly, raising human flags above their capitals, claiming it was safer to kneel before repayment than to face the unknown cost of resistance. Still no one knew what the repayment would be. Some prayed it was gifts, protection, kindness. Others trembled that it was conquest. Karen of the council screamed that they must unite armies and strike. But her voice cracked with fear because even she knew their fleets could not stand against what had been seen. Then came the first message, short, simple, and broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. We remember, 2 words only, but they hit harder than any weapon. Every race that once mocked humanity now remembered the oath, the whispers of a promise made long ago, and every race that had betrayed humanity in the centuries since now felt the weight of those words like chains. The fleet continued its advance, unstoppable, unbroken, like a tide swallowing stars, and in the hearts of the galaxy's rulers a single truth grew heavy. The day of repayment had come, and humanity had chosen to collect it in silence first, terror second, and only later would the galaxy learn whether their debt would be answered with mercy or with fire. For days the human fleet hung over the galaxy like a shadow, silent and unbroken, its sheer size making entire civilizations tremble. Council members met day and night, arguing until their voices cracked, but no one could agree. Was this war or was this something else? Then the silence broke. The first contact did not come as an attack but as an offering, in a mid-rim system where ancient factories had collapsed long ago. Human ships descended and delivered machines unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive engines that purified poisoned rivers, drones that rebuilt entire cities in days, and medicine that cured diseases alien doctors had struggled with for centuries. The world's leaders bowed, confused, terrified, grateful, not knowing if this was kindness or warning. The council panicked, trying to frame it as a gesture of peace, but deep inside everyone felt unease, because the gifts were not small, they were overwhelming, power that shifted the balance instantly. One planet with human technology became stronger than whole empires, and the humans did not sell it, did not trade it. They gave it as if it were nothing, a repayment of an old debt, or so their envoys said. The council chambers erupted in debate when news spread. Some shouted that humanity had come as saviors, returning kindness with kindness. Others hissed that it was a trap, that these gifts were chains disguised as jewels, because who could compete with technology that rebuilt worlds in days? Already old alliances were breaking, empires jealous and afraid, some running to the humans begging for more, others threatening war if their rivals received too much. The galaxy shifted under the weight of gifts, and the humans watched silently, never explaining, only repeating their message, we repay in full. The old race that had once saved humanity trembled when they saw the fleets descend upon their worlds, but instead of fire, they received protection, human warships circling their skies like guardians, human engineers building new homes, new energy, new life. The old race wept, for they realized the oath was real, humanity had remembered across centuries. But for the rest of the galaxy, fear only grew sharper, because if this was repayment, it was a repayment so great it could topple empires. And every alien ruler asked the same question in secret: if humans repaid kindness with this much power, what would they repay betrayal with? The answer hung unspoken in every council hall, in every broadcast, in every whisper, and the galaxy trembled not only at the gifts but at the shadow behind them, because when humanity gave with one hand, the other hand still rested on the trigger of fleets that blotted out the stars. First the galaxy tried to believe the gifts were only kindness, a repayment of something long forgotten. Leaders told their people not to fear, that humanity had come with open hands and not with weapons. But the illusion did not last. The shock came when the first empire collapsed without a single shot fired. It was the Creel Dominion, proud reptilian warriors who had ruled 5 sectors for thousands of years. They mocked the human fleets, calling them parasites hiding behind technology. But when one of their rival colonies accepted human medicine and human machines, the Creel armies could not keep up. Their soldiers fell sick with diseases the humans had already cured. Their ships rusted while rival fleets ran on human reactors that never failed. Their trade routes starved while human drones rebuilt cities overnight. Within months the Dominion that once demanded tribute was begging for scraps. Their fleets surrendered not in battle but in shame. Their worlds declaring loyalty to humanity because loyalty meant survival. The council chambers shook with panic as reports spread. Empires that had stood for millennia were crumbling, not by fire but by gifts, and the galaxy understood the terrible truth. Humanity was not just giving, they were reshaping. Every gift shifted the balance. Every planet that accepted human help became stronger than neighbors, and those neighbors either bent their knees or broke in silence. Worlds that had once feared the council now sent envoys directly to humanity, skipping old treaties, skipping old rules. Entire alliances dissolved overnight. And the humans did nothing but watch, their fleets unmoving, their voices calm, repeating the same line, we repay in full. Some argued it was still mercy, others screamed it was conquest wrapped in silk, but everyone agreed it was unstoppable. Then came the breaking point. A mid-council empire tried to ban human technology, declaring it poison. But their people revolted, demanding the machines that could cure their dying children, demanding the drones that could bring food to barren soil. Within days the empire collapsed into chaos, its rulers dragged down, and when the dust settled the human banner hung above their capital, not raised by human soldiers but by their own citizens. The council leaders sat in silence, their pride crushed, their power slipping, and the whispers turned into fear. If this was repayment, it was repayment too large to survive, because kindness had already shattered more thrones than war ever had. And deep inside every alien ruler asked themselves the same question: if gifts could break empires, what would humanity unleash when it was time to repay betrayal? The silence of that thought was heavier than any fleet, and the galaxy trembled knowing the first shock was only the beginning. The galaxy had been shaken by the gifts, empires collapsing not by war but by kindness too heavy to resist, and still the humans remained silent, their fleets watching from the edges of systems like black shadows against the stars. It was during this uneasy calm that a delegation was finally allowed to meet the human leadership, a gathering arranged in a neutral star system on a barren moon. The alien envoys arrived in glittering ships, their banners raised high, but inside their hearts trembled. They were escorted through silent human lines, towering soldiers in armor that seemed to hum with hidden power, their visors glowing cold, their movements precise, and behind them the warships loomed like mountains of steel, waiting, patient, unstoppable. In the meeting chamber the alien counselors expected threats or negotiations, but the human leader spoke only after a long silence, his voice calm, steady, and cold as stone. "You remember the oath we made," he said, his eyes hard. "When we were weak, when we were dying, one of you saved us, and we swore we would repay in full." The aliens shifted nervously, some trying to smile, some pretending to be confident, but none dared to interrupt. The humans' words echoed, slow and deliberate. "You have seen our gifts, you have seen what repayment means to those who showed us mercy. To them we bring life, strength, and protection. But to those who betrayed us, to those who mocked us, to those who profited from our weakness, our repayment will be different." He paused, letting the silence dig into their bones. "For mercy, we repay with mercy. For betrayal, we repay with terror." The words struck like thunder. The envoys froze, their faces pale, their voices caught in their throats. The chamber felt colder, heavier, as if the very walls understood the meaning. One envoy dared to ask, trembling, "And how do you decide who betrayed you? Who deserves this terror?" The human leaned forward, his gaze sharp enough to cut. "We remember," he said simply, and the room went silent again. Because every empire in that chamber had a history. Every empire had once ignored Earth, mocked Earth, exploited Earth, and now they realized humanity had not forgotten a single slight. Outside, the human fleets pulsed with quiet light, engines burning like suns, and the message spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Worlds whispered that the humans had finally spoken, and their repayment was not a gift or a curse. It was a mirror. Whatever you had given them, they would return tenfold. Kindness became power, betrayal became destruction. The council chambers fell into chaos when the envoys reported back, voices cracking with fear. Some demanded immediate surrender to humanity. Others shouted to prepare weapons even if it meant extinction. But all of them felt the same weight pressing on their hearts. Humanity was no longer a weak species begging for help. Humanity was a force, ancient in memory, young in ambition, carrying both mercy and terror in their hands. And the galaxy trembled knowing the warning had been spoken, not shouted, not screamed, but whispered with the calm of a predator that already owned the hunt. The warning had been given, and now the galaxy waited. Every empire holding its breath, some clinging to the hope that humanity would choose mercy, others already preparing for the storm they knew was coming. The first to fall were the empires that had been loudest in mocking humanity centuries ago. The Zorath Dominion, who once enslaved early human colonies, woke one morning to find their fleets surrounded by black human warships. There was no declaration of war, no speeches, only silence broken by a single broadcast. "We remember," within hours. Their fleets were gone, erased by precision strikes so fast the galaxy never saw the battles. Their planets surrendered before the dust settled. The council screamed for answers, for help, but the humans ignored them, moving on to the next, the Vec Consortium, who once poisoned human trade routes and laughed as millions starved. suddenly found their starports disabled, their supply lines cut, their leaders vanishing one by one in the night. Entire cities waking to find human banners flying where once their own hung, and not a single shot fired in open war. The galaxy trembled, because it was not conquest like they had known, it was judgment, cold and calculated, and it came without mercy for those marked guilty. Whispers filled the council chambers as names of old betrayals resurfaced, every ruler remembering the time they had dismissed Earth as weak, the time they had taxed them unfairly, humiliated their diplomats, or turned away when they begged for help. Now every one of those moments felt like a death sentence waiting to be carried out. Some empires rushed to send envoys to Earth with gifts, with apologies, with desperate promises of loyalty, but humanity answered with silence, their fleets deciding instead who was worthy and who was doomed. One by one the old powers cracked. The Drak warlords who had sworn to strike first were surrounded in their own skies, their warships disabled without a single human casualty, their generals forced to bow before cameras that broadcast their surrender to every world, their proud roars silenced forever. In the hive systems entire broods vanished overnight, human fire consuming their fleets like paper in flame. The few who survived whispered in terror that humanity had unleashed weapons they could not even see, weapons that killed ships without touching them. The galaxy saw the mighty fall and knew that the repayment had begun, the repayment of betrayal with terror, and it was unstoppable. The council chambers turned into a place of dread, leaders too afraid to speak, too afraid to even meet each other's eyes, because each of them wondered if they were next. Outside their walls the human fleets advanced, shadows moving through hyperspace, surrounding system after system, never boasting, never explaining, only showing the same cold pattern, mercy for those who showed mercy long ago, and destruction for those who had not. In the streets of alien cities, ordinary people whispered new words with fear and awe, the debt is due. And those words became heavier than any law, heavier than any treaty, because now everyone knew the truth. The day humanity repaid its debt was not only here, it was rewriting the galaxy. One empire falling after another like dominoes in a storm as empires collapsed and rulers begged for mercy. The galaxy began to understand the true shape of repayment. It was not chaos, it was not random, it was precise and deliberate. For every act of betrayal humanity answered with terror, but for every act of mercy humanity answered with power. And nowhere was this more clear than when the fleets arrived at the homeworld of the ancient race that had once saved them. For centuries that race had been forgotten, scattered into small colonies, their proud cities crumbling into dust. They had no fleets, no armies, no wealth, only memory. And when the human warships darkened their skies, fear spread through their streets, because even they wondered if humanity still remembered them with kindness or with bitterness. The ground shook as massive human carriers descended, their engines lighting the skies like new suns. The people gathered in silence, children clinging to parents, elders bowing their heads, waiting to be judged. Then the human leader himself appeared, not through hologram but in person, walking down the ramp of his flagship with soldiers at his side. The crowd trembled, waiting for words of conquest, but instead the human raised his voice, steady and clear. Long ago, when we were weak, you saved us. When others mocked us, you gave us hope. Today we repay in full. And at his signal, ships opened and poured forth gifts beyond imagination. Towers that generated endless energy, machines that healed broken cities, medicines that cured diseases that had plagued their kind for centuries, protective fleets that swore to guard their skies forever. The people fell to their knees, weeping. Some shouting in joy, some in disbelief, for they had been forgotten by the galaxy but not by humanity. Their debt had been collected, but it was collected with life, with strength, with a gift so great it remade their civilization in a single generation. Across the galaxy the message spread like wildfire, recordings of the moment broadcast into every corner, the sight of the forgotten race rising again under the shield of humanity. And with it came the dread that weighed heavy on those who had betrayed. Because if this was what humanity gave to friends, what would they give to enemies? The council sat in silence watching the footage, some with tears, some with fear, no one able to speak. Because the truth was undeniable now, humanity remembered everything, every kindness, every cruelty, and their repayment was never equal. It was multiplied. The galaxy understood the balance had shifted forever. One ancient race lifted into glory, while others fell into dust, and still the fleets moved. Still the humans whispered the same words again and again, the debt is due. And with every passing day the galaxy realized the debt was not only being collected, it was being written into history as the moment everything changed. The galaxy had watched empires fall, had seen allies destroyed and saviors lifted, had felt the weight of gifts that rebuilt worlds and the terror of fleets that erased them. But even after all this, there was one question that burned in every heart. What was humanity's true goal? Conquest or balance? Vengeance or peace? The answer came when the humans broadcast their message across every channel, every world, every ship. No one could ignore it. The stars themselves seemed to echo the words. The screen lit up with the image of the human leader standing before the largest fleet ever assembled. A dark ocean of steel stretching behind him, his face calm, his eyes unshaken, his voice steady. We remember. He began, and the galaxy held its breath. For centuries we carried a debt, a promise made when we were weak, a vow we never forgot. To those who showed us kindness, we have given more than we were given. To those who lifted us when we were falling, we have lifted them higher still. But to those who betrayed us, to those who mocked us, to those who crushed us when we were desperate, we have repaid in kind. For mercy we repay with mercy, for cruelty we repay with terror. His words thundered through the void, echoing in 1,000 languages. Carried by translators across millions of systems, we are not conquerors, we are not invaders, we are the balance that was denied us. The debt was written, and we have collected it. This is the way of humanity. We never forget, we never forgive without remembering, and we never leave a promise unfulfilled. Behind him the fleet lit their engines, a synchronized blaze that filled the skies like a second galaxy being born. The image seared into the eyes of every watching alien. Some cried in silence. Some trembled with fear, some fell to their knees knowing resistance was hopeless. In the council chambers leaders sat frozen, no one daring to speak, because they all knew humanity had spoken not to negotiate, not to ask, but to declare. From this day onward the galaxy would never again see humanity as weak. From this day onward every empire would live under the shadow of their memory. The humans had carved their truth into the stars. And the final message was clear. Humanity had repaid its debt, and in doing so had risen to a power no one could challenge. The galaxy trembled, not because it had been conquered, but because it had been judged, and humanity had become the judge, the jury, and if needed, the executioner. The galaxy had trembled when the final message was spoken, but what followed was even greater, because when the human fleets moved again they did not come as destroyers, they came as architects. One by one the shattered empires were rebuilt under new banners, not their old rulers, not their corrupt councils, but under the watch of humanity. In some systems human governors arrived to guide, in others local leaders were given power again but sworn to new laws, and everywhere the same truth was whispered. The old order was gone. The galaxy that once laughed at Earth was finished. A new order had begun. Human ships patrolled the trade lanes, not as raiders but as guardians, their presence enough to silence pirates, smugglers, and warlords who once fed on the weak. Planets that had been left to rot were given human technology, food generators that ended starvation, energy cores that powered entire continents, medicine that cured plagues. For common people across the stars it was a golden age, but for rulers it was terror, because they knew the gifts came with chains, chains of memory, chains of judgment. Humanity did not rule as tyrants, but they ruled with fear sharper than any blade, because every leader knew if they turned corrupt, if they betrayed their people, if they betrayed the balance, humanity would remember. Already the council chamber was a shadow of what it once had been. Its grand pillars standing tall but its voices silenced, no longer the heart of power. It had become a place of formality. The real power now lived in the fleets that circled like dark storms in orbit of 1,000 suns, in the speeches of human envoys who reminded all of the vow, the debt is due. The old race that had once saved humanity now rose again, their civilization shining brighter than ever before, and they stood beside humans as equals, symbols of mercy rewarded. But the other old powers that once betrayed Earth were gone, wiped from maps, their legacies reduced to ruins whispered about in fear, and so the galaxy changed, no longer divided by arrogance but bound together by a single unbreakable truth. Humanity had proven they were not weak, they were not forgetful, they were not ordinary, they were a force born from memory and fire, a species that carried promises like weapons and debts like destiny. In the marketplaces of rebuilt cities children played under banners of Earth. In the skies human warships drifted like silent guardians. and in the halls of power alien leaders signed treaties with trembling hands, knowing those treaties would never be broken, not because of law, but because humanity would not allow it. The galaxy understood now that it was not conquest. It was order, not tyranny, but balance, a balance. Forged from centuries of silence and then unleashed in one thunderous repayment. And as the stars turned above, everyone whispered the same words that had started it all. Words that would never be forgotten again. We remember. The debt had been repaid, but in its repayment humanity had become something greater than any empire. They had become the new order of the galaxy, and no one, not even the oldest of races, dared to challenge them again.